My name is Danny Ibarra, and I'm a senior music student at Fort Hays State University. I am a violist, and my main focus has been more on performance in the solo world and in like orchestral studies. I've been playing violin since I was 8 years old, so this is my 14th year playing. Majority of my life has been like in a rehearsal setting, like sitting in a chair with my back straight in an orchestra. I'm also very interested in like theory and composition, especially these last 2 years. Theory has always been something I just naturally like was drawn to. I've always hated math, like all through like school, but when it came to music theory, it's like the math of music, and it makes so much more sense to me. I'm so much more into it, and I could talk about it all day, every day. I've done everything from basic polyphony to 17th century Bach studies to 20th century 12-tone style. Done a little bit of work with electronic music and composition with coding and computers, and by far my favorite is probably Romantic era theory, because that's when you get all the cool chords, and just chromaticism kind of exploded during the 1800s. Composers like Bach, Mozart, Haydn set up the groundwork. Theory and composition is very formulaic, and there's lots of patterns and progressions that you must follow. When you get to the Romantic era, it's very big and overdone, and you don't want to do something that someone's already done. So orchestras are getting bigger and bigger. You're seeing brass instruments like trombone and tuba being standardized. Orchestras are reaching sizes of like anywhere from like 60 to 100 people. And so that's probably like why I'm most interested in that, because everything is so over the top and very dramatic, and it's really easy to like identify with, and like you can always find something, like some music, some composer that can explain what you're feeling. My favorite composer is Peter Tchaikovsky. He's a Russian late Romantic composer. He's born in 1840, died in 1893. Very revolutionary with his compositions. The way he worked with melody is very rare, and all his melodies are very memorable and like just easy to sing, and that's very like it's really easy to like understand and like connect with. Some of his famous compositions are 1812 Overture, Nutcracker, Swan Lake, The Serenade for Strings. He has his famous piano concerto, his violin concerto in D. These are all works that I've done a lot of studies with. And then his symphonies he has 6 completed symphonies. His more famous ones are 4, 5, and 6. His 7th one he did not get to finish, and some of his students kind of turned it into a piano concerto after he had passed away. But my favorite symphony is his 6th symphony in B minor. When you talk about a musical form in relation to symphonies, there's 4 movements, 4 separate works within a symphony, and the general pattern for that is like a big, like loud sonata form movement, followed by a slow movement, followed by a fast dance movement, and then the grand finale. And Tchaikovsky is very interesting to me because he was not afraid to break the norms, and he truly wrote from his heart and what he was going through. You can see a lot of the obstacles in his life he was facing. He was gay in Soviet Russia, and so you can see a lot of the inner turmoil he was facing in his 6th symphony. And so when he scored the 6th symphony, he flipped the order around of the movements and actually put the sad movement, the slow movement, at the very end. And at the time, like, that was never done. Everyone was super upset and thought he was crazy for doing this. I think it was about 9 days after his 6th symphony premiered, he died. In some cases, people think that it was a suicide because there's a cholera epidemic in Russia at that point, and it's debated that he drank contaminated water on purpose, like beforehand. And so 9 days after his symphony premiered, he passed, and people think that was his like suicide note in a sense, because he messed with the order. He did the big movement and then the fast dance movement and then the finale third. And so when he did the finale, everyone started cheering and jumping up for joy. But then they started the next movement, which is a slow movement, and it really kind of cut that tone and shifted it into a whole new sad way. And so it's just stuff like that. Like, Tchaikovsky's really influenced me in my musical studies because he's not afraid to do what he wanted. He's not afraid to really like speak for himself and speak from his heart, and just the way he can be really happy and joyous in one moment and the next make you want to be like crying in a dark room by yourself is very amazing. So yeah, Tchaikovsky was gay, and it's still a little debated of whether he was like openly about it. He was open about it with his brother, who is also openly gay, and we can assume from letters he wrote to his brother and to some of his friends that he was out to his inner circle. And he and his nephew were very, very close. Tchaikovsky would always live in cities near his nephew so they could see each other easily, and he actually dedicated his Sixth Symphony to his nephew. And after Tchaikovsky passed away, all his music ended up with his nephew. His matron, Nadezhda von Meck, she was a very wealthy political figure in Russia, and her husband passed away, so she was kind of like the matriarch of her family line. And she was absolutely in love with Tchaikovsky's music. And Tchaikovsky being like a struggling musician, he needed financial support, and so von Meck made a deal with him where she would sponsor him and pay for his bills, pay for him to live, to eat, as long as he kept composing. And so the only stipulation is that they could never meet in person. So for 13, 14 years, they only corresponded through letters. There has been it's been noted that there's a picture or an article about them where they were actually in the same room, but because Tchaikovsky didn't know what she looked like he didn't know. And so after 13 years of von Meck's financial aid, a lot of people think that because of Tchaikovsky's sexuality and other political issues going on in Soviet Russia at that time, von Meck faced a lot of battles with her own family, and so she wrote Tchaikovsky one last check and told him that she would never speak to him again, and that this would be the last check. And that was ultimately the demise of Tchaikovsky, if you want to call it that. That's when he really started falling into his deep depression. He wasn't writing as much. He was notoriously known for spending months on music, and then he wouldn't like one chord, so he'd burn it all. So he'd have to start all over, and it was very sad. I mean, von Meck was very much one of his best friends, even though they'd never met. There was letters between them where he would reveal personal information about himself and say that he'd miss her, and he was just very open and forward with von Meck. I also identify as gay and can sometimes embody the poor musician lifestyle, as we would call it. Tchaikovsky's his music is very personal, and I know I can describe myself as someone who's I'm an open book. I can talk about my feelings very easily with people, and some of my own writings and my compositions that I've been working on for the past couple of years, they're always all based on my relationships with people, significant others, friends. My best friend is a cellist, and so I will write music for viola and cello just so that she and I can have music to play together. If there's something I know she likes to do in her playing, I will incorporate that. So it's a truly so that my compositions are truly for us and for our relationships. And Tchaikovsky's definitely my favorite composer, and I listen to him every single day, and I aspire to be even a fraction of awesome as he is. I want to my goal is to play Tchaikovsky 6 and to conduct it at some point in my life. And those are both very big challenges, and so those are the two big goals I have related to Tchaikovsky. But I also just want to play music, just not just for the sake of playing music, but just to spread its meaning to people. And a lot of people see classical music as a dying art, but it really there's so many people who still listen to it, and it's such a good way to get students and young students especially to play music and get scholarships for college, and to really understand the beauty that is classical music. My goal in life is just to be able to spread that and to educate that and to play as much as I can while I can, and just live it up and have fun. So my favorite quote, who is by Tchaikovsky, ironically, is "Inspiration is a guest that does not willingly visit the lazy." You've been listening to Danny Ibarra.